Welcome to Collin's Biology Corner. Today, I will be teaching you about the plant immune response. The plant immune response may not be as widely known as the other responses because it doesn't have to necessarily deal with us in our daily lives directly. So you may find yourself asking, why is this important? Well, without these defenses, plants would practically be sitting ducks for any foreign invader they come across. Because they are physically unable to move, they have to be creative on how they defend themselves from these invaders. This process allows plants to have the ultimate defense against the invaders that they face in their daily lives. They use methods such as a chemical release, the barrier of their epidermis and periderm, a hypersensitive response, and systemic acquired response to combat any potential pathogen that they come across. The first example of this plant immune response will be the tobacco plant. A better drawing can be found on page 637 of your book, but for this drawing will do. The silver dot is an R protein, and this is the pathogen. The pathogen will go to the R protein and the protein will recept it. From there, a signal transduction pathway will occur. This will in turn set off the hypersensitive response. A hypersensitive response is like a local response. Cell and tissue death happen here, and these little brown dots called lesions are the effect of it. That is just the dead cells and tissues on the plant. I'm sure you've seen them before. A hypersensitive response is initiated when a pathogen effector binds to the R protein and stimulates the production of phytoalexins. This induces the protein or the production of PR proteins or pathogen-related proteins and enzymes that hydrolyze parts of the cell wall. From here, the hypersensitive response helps set off this signal that travels throughout the rest of the plant. Now, this is the other leaf. In this leaf, it will receive this signal and know that a potential pathogen has entered the plant. This signal will help set off the acquired resistance. The acquired resistance, or systemic acquired resistance, will now be activated, and the production of molecules that help protect the cell will be produced here. It's almost sort of like a memory cell that will in turn block off this pathogen from spreading farther in the plant and protect this leaf itself against the potential pathogen and potential harm it may face. The systemic acquired resistance, or just acquired resistance as I have written here, is a defensive response in affected plants that help protect the tissue from pathogens. These beasts. It is a general non-specific defense, and it uses methylacylic acid, which is produced around the infection site and travels through the phloem, where it becomes converted into salicylic acid. Salicylic acid then in turn activates the signal transduction pathway that induces the production of the pathogen response proteins and resistance to the pathogen attack itself. Overall, the tobacco plant is a fine example of this plant immune response. As you can tell, it really highlights how the bacteria and the protein work together, and then how that protein takes the message, starts the signal transduction pathway, the hypersensitive response occurs, which then adds to the signal of a plant that goes throughout the stem, the roots, and over to all the other leaves, which then in turn starts its own signal transduction pathway and uses a systemic acquired resistance to prepare itself for the potential invader that may be able to sneak through this hypersensitive response. Like a tobacco cell though, mainly the organism's main effect will just be these lesions. This is very common as it's just the death site of where this occurred. But say if it did spread throughout it, then maybe a farm would have a majority of crops damaged if this process wasn't able to work properly, because then in turn many of the leaves would be affected, which in turn which will ruin the majority of the plant and therefore make it useless for the farmer trying to grow tobacco. The tobacco leaf's overall response isn't anything too serious. The most common would be these lesions that would occur on a plant, and that's just where the cell and tissue death occurred while it was fighting the pathogen. Most of the other leaves will end up looking like this, just normal, green, beautiful. But if a decent amount of the leaves become infected with this pathogen, then potentially a farmer's crop turnout could be affected, because the tobacco plants would then almost become useless due to them being unhealthy. This next picture I depict is of a maize leaf and an armyworm caterpillar. Unlike Miss Tobin, I've realized before college that art is not my thing, so please don't judge my drawing, as you can find a better picture on page 636 of your book. So this maize leaf recruits this type of wasp to come in when this hungry caterpillar starts munching down on its leaves. A chemical compound from this caterpillar's saliva in turn makes the leaf release volatile compounds into the air that attracts this wasp. The wasp, as you can tell, buzzes into the scene. It then injects its eggs into this caterpillar, effectively ending up killing the caterpillar and saving the leaf. This is a way that a leaf protects itself against a herbivore, such as the caterpillar, because it attracts this wasp to take out the enemy. So basically the wasp is doing the dirty work for the leaf, and in turn the leaf survives. To conclude this video on the plant immune response, one thing I really hope you took away from this is, it's nothing like Plants vs. Zombies. The plant just can't shoot the bullets at the bacteria and end up killing it. In all reality, this sadly is not how it works. Instead, it takes the pathogen, uses the protein as a receptor, has a signal transduction pathway, the hypersensitive response to try locally killing it, the signal that then extends throughout the stem, throughout other leaves, and throughout roots and other parts of the plant, to then in turn allow the systemic acquired resistance to occur in other leaves in order to build up for this potential pathogen. The tobacco plant, this only affects it normally as a lesion, or the recruitment of the wasp in order to do this maize leaf's dirty work on this poor armyworm caterpillar who will now be laying baby wasp eggs. Plants vs. Zombies is not plant immune response. Plant immune response is a beautiful way of how plants protect themselves against pathogens and continue on in their daily lives.